Why on earth does an SLR need a barcode reader? I'm your host, Azriel Knight, and on today's episode of This Old Camera, we learn all about the Canon EOS Elan, a camera that was touted for its revolutionary whisper motor drive, as well as utilizing a barcode system for better photography. Considered to be the successor to the EOS 630, the Canon EOS Elan, also known as the EOS 100 in Europe, and with varying models 100QD and the 100 Panorama in Japan, was the world's first AF SLR camera which incorporated the concept of silent operation. Released in 1991, this second-generation EOS camera also borrowed from a unique feature from the EOS 10S, a barcode system capable of storing additional film shooting modes. The earliest review I could find was in the November 1991 issue of Outdoor Photographer. The Elan is the first EOS camera to incorporate what Canon calls a whisper drive, says reviewer Rick Salmon. Making a quiet camera is no simple task. 6 different noise reduction techniques have been used in 12 locations in the EOS Elan. Chief among these is a Canon-developed belt drive film transport mechanism that facilitates sprocketless film winding, rewinding, and shutter mirror operation. Another innovative feature added to the Elan mentioned in this review was Canon's exclusive cross-type basis, which stands for Base Stored Image Sensor, which is designed to reduce the number of hard-to-focus subjects by identifying horizontal and vertical lines compared to other cameras that only recognize vertical ones. In low-light situations, basis is assisted with a patterned image projected by the camera. Salmon also took some time to talk about the pop-up flash and its features, which include red-eye reduction, an auto zoom that ranges from 28 to 80 millimeters, same as the kit lens, exposure compensation, and second curtain sync. Something else that was new to the EOS line and only seen in a couple other models up to this point was the command dial. The dial is easy to use, says Salmon, and it lets the photographer select any one of 11 automatic exposure modes, metered manual, or several advanced exposure control options, including automatic bracketing. Also mentioned for the fussy photographer is the custom functions dial that gives you a series of options like canceling DX reading, turning off the AF auxiliary light, and activating a mirror lock. In this first article, we are also introduced to these 3 accessories. The first I'll mention is the RC1 transmitter, basically a wireless cable release for your camera, capable of being fired up to 16 feet away. You can set it to fire the camera right away or add a 2-second delay. There is also the GR70 grip extension, which is just a piece of plastic that makes the grip bigger, useful for bigger hands and steadiness with heavier telephoto lenses. The third accessory is a bit of an odd one, a barcode reader. Barcoding programming introduced on the EOS 10S is a unique feature that makes it possible to instantly program the camera for a variety of effects, claims Salmon. The photographer simply selects a sample photo from a small Canon booklet, matching the type of scene they want to shoot, scans the barcode beneath the picture with the optional Canon barcode reader, and inputs the information directly into a built-in data port on the camera body. Also released in November 1991 was Herbert Kepler's take on the Elan in his regular review column, SLR Notebook, published in Popular Photography. The review begins with a callback to the era of photography before motorized film advanced and autofocus that he says only the faint clickety-chirp of near-silent shutters and whoosh of rapid return mirrors filled our ears when the photograph was made. But then came progress, says Kepler. Auto load, auto wind, auto rewind, auto focus. And with this progress came the most dreadful cacophony of zips, whirs, and whines. Even presidential press conferences are not spared the annoying sound of modern SLRs grinding away to their motor's content. Canon claims the Elan will produce operational noise 1/4 that of previous models, and when Kepler does a test against the EOS 10S, this confirms it. This article gives us a great visual of just how this is accomplished. At the top is a traditional multi-gear driven motorized rewind assembly. At the bottom is the Elan assembly, a coreless, fiber-reinforced, rubber-toothed urethane belt. This was only part of Canon's overall solution. Also incorporated into the design was rubber-like bushings used to isolate the internal mechanisms from the body shell, a worm speed reduction gear rather than the usual flat one, plus a sprocketless film drive to eliminate the noise of the film going across the teeth of the sprocket wheel. There is also the standard lens, the 28 to 80mm f3.5 to 5.6 with an ultrasonic motor, or USM for short. The readers are also given an illustration of the command dial. If you're a Canon user, much of this will look familiar, like the full auto green zone mode, aperture and shutter priorities, and the custom function setting. Also familiar and adapted from the Canon EOS 1 is the quick control dial, used for secondary settings. So for example, in aperture and shutter priority mode, it will adjust exposure compensation. In manual, it adjusts aperture, while the main dial adjusts shutter speed. Something we take for granted is the top LCD panel, which gives a massive range of information. Besides the basics like exposure settings, we get things like whether or not auto exposure bracketing is on, focus type, and metering type. The pop-up flash unit, though likely dismissed by many users, is a first in its class with the ability to zoom. That is, it's capable of changing its angle of coverage at 50 and 80mm focal lengths. Top flash sync speed of 1/125th, and has a flash power of over 15 feet with an ISO 100 film and the kit lens. In Kepler's review, we also learn a bit more about the barcode reader. That is, there are 143 different subject programs, and you can load up to 5 at a time. The barcode reader went for about $60 USD, or about $120 in 2022 money. The two main applications an Elan was promoted for were wildlife and wedding photography. So it makes sense that outdoor photographer would do a field test, and that's what they did in February 1992. Photographer George Lepp spent weeks with the Elan as his primary camera, replacing his normally used EOS 1. The same benefits of the Elan are mentioned here as the other reviews, but provides a bit more detail on the Whisper Quiet motor drive. We learn that the urethane belt drive film transport is strengthened with aramid fiber cords, also used to make bulletproof jackets and radial tires. This review, as well as the earliest one I mentioned at the beginning of the video, made claim of a noise reduction as much as 1/8 of other cameras, but the consensus seems to be 1/4 on average. This photo of a chickadee was shot 10 feet from the subject, showcasing just how quiet this camera is. One complaint from this field test was in regards to auto exposure bracketing. Automatic exposure bracketing is built into the camera with 1/2 stop increments that fire in a series of 3 immediate exposures. I wish this feature could be individual exposures instead of 3 rapid ones. There is too much of a chance of camera movement during 3 continuous exposures, and when the mirror up function is used, only the first exposure benefits from the mirror being up for 2 seconds. Lepp goes on to say that you're better off using exposure compensation with the quick control dial. During his wrap-up, Lepp speaks highly of the camera. In the 3 weeks I used the EOS Elan, I had no problems accomplishing professional tasks, as well as turning the camera over to a workshop participant who had previously only used a manual Minolta SRT 100 of ancient vintage. He wasn't able to utilize the full potential of the EOS system immediately, but within minutes he was light years ahead of the camera that had been his staple for many years. This is precisely the advantage of Elan. Canadian publication Photo Digest magazine also chimed in with their field test by Peter Burian in March 1992 and confirmed a 6 decibel decrease in sound output, which made the Elan half the noise level of the EOS 10S and only 1/4 the noise of an EOS 1. Reviewers up to this point were quick to compare the Elan to the 10S, likely due to the use of the command dial and barcode scanning technology. Burian notes that the Elan is $150 less than the 10S, with minor trade-offs like 7 custom functions rather than 14, and 1 autofocus point instead of 3. At a price between the Rebel S and EOS 10S, The Elan is nearly as competent as the latter, and if the price of the 10S gives you sticker shock, this one will be an attractive choice, says Burian. Perhaps the review with the most technical breakdown of the Elan was conducted by Popular Photography in July 1992. I find Popular Photography's reviews very thorough, and it zoned in on several aspects of the Elan that other reviews missed, good and bad. Here are a few examples. The drive and AF buttons on the top end of the LCD panel are colored blue and brown and correlate with the display on the panel. The specified 3 frames per second was only achieved without film inside. With film, it only made it to 2.3 frames per second. And one thing I'm glad Popular Photography pointed out was that with all this talk about a super quiet camera, no one mentioned the noisy flash. And until I read this review, I thought it was merely due to the age of the 2 Elans I'm in possession of, but that doesn't sound like the case here. After praising the whisper quiet motor, they state, however, the built-in zoom flash head, another valuable innovation, has a very audible motor, which operates when you change zoom focal lengths and also when the flash is first popped up. Here's another odd thing about the flash. We were somewhat surprised to find that the entire LCD Finder display turns off after the flash is fired and reappears in about 2 seconds. While this is a very minor annoyance, it does lead to a greater one. Apparently the camera operations, taking the picture, winding to the next frame, and recycling the flash, are all that the camera's 2CR5 lithium battery can handle at once. But in most SLRs with dedicated flash, built in or occupying the hot shoe, there is a flash confirmation indicator in the finder assuring you there was sufficient light on the subject for a proper exposure. Not only is there no such feature for the Elan's built-in flash, but the feature doesn't exist for the Accessory Canon 300EZ and 430EZ flashes either. Let's switch gears now and talk about advertising. The oldest ad I could find was in November 1991, and it's a massive 8-page feature with heavy, high-quality, silver-like paper. The first page shows a low-key image of the camera with the title, Experience Elan. The second page gives the reader a nice shot of the command dial, quick control dial, and LCD display. It reads, New EOS Elan, Canon's incomparable autofocus camera invites you to experience this oneness. You've no doubt achieved it before, from time to time, at work or play. It's that groove where it all just happens effortlessly. Experience it with EOS Elan. From the time you first hold Elan, the experience is one of complete comfort. The easy balance, the custom contours make Elan feel totally at home in your hands. By design, Elan responds to the utmost of ease with quietness and confidence, instinctively reacting to its surroundings. You feel assured, relaxed. With you and your camera in perfect harmony, your conscious thoughts seem to cease. Your instincts take over. Your creativity is free to explore. And however far it takes you, Elan will grow with you. The greater your demands, the greater your bond with Elan will become. Approach the peak of your photographic potential. Experience EOS Elan. The next page says experience what it means to be one with your camera, and the fourth page starts getting into the meat of it with Elan's features. EOS has been out for a few years at this point, so Canon has 34 compatible lenses, including 12 ultrasonic ones. We also get a good look at the barcode reader and an example of one of the program sheets. Page 5 shows the flash with another dramatic statement, and page 6 shows a couple images taken with the Elan, and the following statement. We realize we risk your skepticism when we say you'll feel a new pride in photography. Pride is a feeling not easily achieved. However, when your eye and your mind are in that groove and your photographs reflect your thoughts and feelings, when your instincts and intuitions are transferred to film and you see the results, we sincerely believe pride is exactly what you'll feel. Experience it with EOS Elan. It ends with the familiar slogan of the time, Canon, so advanced it's simple, and on the opposite page, another photo example. I have to admit, this image is breathtaking. Then you turn the page and it's another shot of the camera. I also found a 2-page version of this ad in the next month's issue. Other than these introductory ads, I actually only found 2 others, which came as a surprise. I have 129 magazine issues from 10 publications between 1991 and 1994, all indexed, and these were the only ads I found for the Elan. To be clear, these 2 versions were published in multiple issues, not just once. Not surprising, the theme is the quiet operation. The one with the birds here carries on with the Experience Elan theme and says you'll experience a camera so quiet it will distract neither you nor your subject. This one with grandpa and grandchild says, it sounds like another breakthrough from Canon. The Elan would be replaced by the Elan 2 and 2E in September 1995. From here we'll go over some of its basic operations, then I'll show you my field test, and finally I'll let you know my personal pros and cons so you can determine if this camera is right for you. This section is not meant to be a full manual, but an introduction to the camera, definitely enough to get you started. For a PDF of the full manual, see the link in the description. First thing you'll want to do is give your camera power. The battery compartment can be found on the underside of the unit. Slide the battery compartment latch to open. Insert a 2CR5 battery, terminals first. Close the compartment until the cover latch locks. To turn the camera on, press the lock release button on the command dial and turn from L to any shooting mode. To attach a lens, line up the red dots and rotate clockwise. To remove a lens, hold the lens release button and rotate counterclockwise. To load or roll a film, open the back cover by sliding the back cover latch down. Insert a film cartridge, and while holding the cartridge down, pull the lead to the orange mark and close. The film should automatically advance to the first frame. The Canon EOS Elan has several image zone shooting modes including full auto, portrait, landscape, macro, and sport. The command dial also features creative zone shooting modes, including program, shutter priority, aperture priority, and full manual. In shutter and aperture priority modes, the main function is controlled by the main dial, while exposure compensation is adjusted by the control dial. In manual mode, the shutter is controlled by the main dial and aperture by the control dial. To activate the flash, press the button to the left of the flash on the top. Select focusing mode by pressing the AF mode select button. There is one shot or AI servo. One shot is for stationary subjects, and AI servo is for moving subjects. Select drive mode by pressing the film winding mode button. Your options are single exposure, continuous exposure, and self-timer/remote. Single exposure will advance 1 frame at a time. Continuous exposure will rapid fire exposures as long as the shutter is held down. Self-timer will initiate a 10-second countdown and is also set for when the remote is used. Select a metering mode by pressing and holding the metering mode flash exposure compensation button and rotating the main dial. The options are evaluative metering, partial metering, or center weighted average. To learn more about the Elan and its features, see the manual listed in the description. Let's take a quick look at a few of Elan's accessories. First is the GR70 grip, simply attach to the bottom with the tripod socket and rotate here with a coin. The RC1 remote can be used by setting the drive mode to self-timer/remote. Detach the remote from the holder by pressing this red button. The holder can be added to the camera's strap. Slide this panel off and add 2 CR1220 batteries, positive end up, then slide the panel back into place. Turn it on by sliding this switch from L to the dot indicator, aim at the camera, and fire. If you want a 2-second delay, slide the switch up again to the number 2, aim, and press the release. To reattach, anchor at the bottom and press up top until it clicks. To use the barcode reader, slide this panel off and ensure there are 2 CR2025 batteries inside, positive side up, then replace the panel. Switch the command dial to the barcode program setting. Using the EOS Photo Files booklet, find the barcode you wish to input into the camera. Place the eye of the reader over the square left of the barcode, press the transmission button, and swipe across. The reader will beep to indicate a successful scan. Place the output side of the reader against the barcode receptor, press the transmission button. The reader should beep and the camera will indicate the program number. In addition to the barcode icon indicated in the command dial, you can also override any of the image zone shooting modes with additional programs. To clear these modes, a barcode is listed on page 26 of the camera's manual. I actually conducted 2 field tests of the Elan. The first was in November 2020, and I used ultrafine extreme film and Xtol as a developer. I'm quite proud of these shots, and if you want to see the process, you can watch the video for it, link in the description. In my more recent field test, I used good old Kodak Gold 200. I did use a 28 to 80mm lens, but I'm not sure it's the kit lens. Seems to be an updated version of it. Let's talk about some pros and cons. Pros: quiet. Of course it has to be addressed. The camera is quieter than other EOS cameras that came before it. Options: while there weren't as many options for lenses in the early 90s, another 30 years has provided more lens options than you'll ever need. Familiarity. The command, main, and quick control dials are all staples in Canon's EOS cameras moving forward, even into DSLRs, so a Canon user will feel right at home. Cons: weight. Since the release of the Elan, much lighter Canon cameras have been released with many of the same features. The barcode system. One of the features of this camera requires that you pay extra. Moreover, in the 21st century, it's becoming harder to find the barcode reader and booklet. Even worse, you need to make sure that you have a copy of the manual to clear the programs off the camera. When you do finally get the booklet and reader, you will have a hard time finding scenarios where it'll be useful. You also have to remember what the program numbers do and the additional instructions, like what focal length to shoot and whether you need a flash or a tripod. If you've got all 5 slots programmed, that becomes almost more of a task than just learning how to shoot in manual, and if you bring the reader and booklet with you, it almost defeats the purpose of storing them. Overall, I can still recommend this camera. Just because it has a very antiquated and janky feature, it's not going to interfere with your workflow. If you're committed to the EOS system, this body, though a little heavier than some, is still a solid choice. Some people actually prefer a little heft to their cameras anyway. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this edition of This Old Camera. If you did, please consider becoming my patron on Patreon. Through Patreon, I offer exclusive content like darkroom prints mailed out 6 times per year, your name in the credits, and early access to all of my videos. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and until next time, stay classic.